Okay, this one should be working. Hang on. Let me pull up the slides now. Okay. Are we good now? It works. Perfect. Hi, everyone. So good to see you all. So do you want me, Shelby, do you want me to wait till like a few more people get in here since we had some issues? Also, I'm keeping track of the comments on my phone. I promise I'm not being rude and just staring at it. Okay, cool. Well, we're gonna hang out here. I hope this isn't too hard to see. I could turn off the light if that would make like reading easier. But I don't know if that's gonna, if you can see me then. Oh, that's really dark now. Yeah, and that's super reflective. Well, I'm trying to figure out how to make this the best for y'all to be able to see. It looked easier with the light. Okay. Well, let's do the light then. I'm just going to go to the first slide and we'll see if we can read the font. If you can't, this is going to be difficult. And I'm going to, yeah, that font is like impossible to read. Okay, that's no fun. Well, I'm trying to figure out what to do. Can you move the lamp back? Let's try it. I could move the projector closer. That might help. Or move the computer closer, yeah. Let's try doing that. Here. All right, hold please, everyone. So sorry. Oh. All right, we're gonna go back. And we're gonna try to move this computer closer. I'm so sorry for the awkwardness that's happening. We're trying our best, hang on. All right. Let's see. Is it better? Worse? That looks like it's getting better. Okay. Let's see. I'm trying my best out here, y'all. Now, how about if I turn off the light? Okay. How is that? You can't really see me now, but at least you can read it, except that's still so, I don't know why it's reflecting so much. Difficulties. I'm so sorry to everyone who has to watch me fumble around this room right now. Okay. How does this look? That's still impossible to read. Okay, wow. Okay, I could project it onto a TV and then just film what's on the TV with a webcam. That might work, question mark. I would have to stop the live stream again though. Okay. So all right, I'm so sorry, everyone. I could just talk through the slides. Okay, I can do that if you guys want me to, and then it'll just be me like sitting here. Can you send a link to the slides in the chat? Oh, that works. Okay, there we go. Creative problem solving. I love it. Okay, so I will do that. Here we go. I'll share it with you guys. Thank you, Emily, for that great idea. So let me go ahead and share these. Sorry, everyone. I'm trying to do this on my phone. Copy the link. Okay. Yes, I have to talk myself through all of this because if I don't, I think I will go crazy. Okay. Hang on. All right. Well, it's not letting me copy the link, so that's really fun. One moment. I'm so sorry for everyone who is sitting through this. Okay. Let me just do it on here. Share. Copy link. Here we go. I should have just done that in the first place. Ha ha ha. There we go. Okay. You should have access to those now. Oh, that's like really crazy behind me. Yay, people are getting in. Okay. So, we good now? Everyone cool? Now I want this like centered though. Okay. I guess I'm just gonna like kneel on the ground. Okay. So welcome everyone to Tau Beta Sigma Burnout. I'm sorry you just had to watch me be incredibly awkward for like the first 5 minutes of this chat. But you know what? That's not gonna deter me. So yeah, just follow along with the slides. There's gonna be a few points in this where I ask for some participation. So if you want to comment in the chat, I'll be keeping up with it. But I know if you're watching on the slides, that might be difficult to go back and forth. So we're going to work through this and we will problem solve together. So here we go. Okay. So, oh, close the YouTube tab. You're hearing two of me. Okay, I'll do that. Sorry. Okay. So then I'm just going to do the slides on my screen on my phone, and I'm going to do the YouTube link up here, and we're going to call it a day. So then I can still read the chats. Okay. Is this good? Do we care if I just do it like this and then just go over the slides? Because you can't read them anyways, so we're just going to do this. Also, you're good if you want to stay. You don't have to. Is everyone good with this? Yes. I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties. Waiting for a response. Okay, good. Great. So we're going to go to the intro slide then. So first of all, just a little bit about me. I am Jack Hoving. I'm from the Zeta Alpha chapter of Tau Beta Sigma. I am a nursing major. I'm going to be graduating soon, so super excited about that. As you can tell, I'm extremely awkward from everything you just had to witness. So there's a little fun fact about me, I guess. So I kind of just wanted to start with talking about some of my real experience that I've had with burnout in Tau Beta Sigma. So for those of you who don't know, back in the day, like 2 years ago, Zeta Alpha got the chance to host the North Central District Convention, and that was super fun. And we had a great time. It was a great learning experience, but it did leave our chapter with a lot of burnout afterwards. Wait, y'all. Oh, yeah, never mind. Okay. So a lot of our chapters had some residual burnout from that convention that we hosted. And I was president during that next year. And I felt like a lot of my time that I spent was just sort of combating that all year and working us to try to get back to our baseline and our normal. But I think that really took a big toll on me. And a lot of what I wanted to do as president, I wasn't able to do. And it kind of slowly chipped away at my passion for TBS, and I kind of was left with a lot of burnout. But luckily, I recovered from that, and I am back and better than ever, and I am here getting the chance to present with you now. And I just kind of want to talk about various things dealing with burnout, different ways that we can prevent it, ways that we can combat it if it does occur, lots of different stuff like that. Oh, so happy to see all the ZA people here. Thank you. So if any of you want to share an experience you have had with burnout, you can feel free to in the comments. Please don't feel like you have to be obligated to do that. Also, for everything that I say in this chat, you're always welcome to reach out to me if you want to, and we can definitely have some good talks too outside of the YouTube stream. So just want to make that available for all of you as an option going forward here. And I can always, if you comment it and I miss it while we're going, I'll make sure I go through the comments, and I can always send you a message afterwards or something to answer your question. Okay, so kind of old people crew, yes, definitely. So I just going forward before we start the presentation, if you have ever experienced burnout or something similar, or you know someone who has, just kind of keep the way that you were feeling, or if you haven't, the way that they were feeling in your head as we go through this, just to sort of make the content more relatable. And so you can just kind of see some similarities from a real life situation you have experience with and the stuff that I'm telling you. Okay, we're going to go to the next slide now. I don't know why I did this, but I think that's going to be the move for the live stream now when we switch slides. So if you see that, we're going. So for the slide that says, what is burnout? So, I mean, each person defines burnout differently. It's really up to the individual to know that, because we all experience burnout in different ways and because of different stressors in our lives. Your like basic Google cut and dry definition is that it's a collapse caused by overwork or stress. And yes, I literally just stole that from Google, which is why I said it's your Google definition. But some of the things I'm talking about are a lot of this information I have from like one of my nursing textbooks that it talks about workplace burnout. It's a big thing that's relevant in my career. So a lot of this information I got from some of my nursing textbooks, and I sort of applied it to TBS. So just so you know where this is coming from going forward. So burnout manifests in three main ways usually. So physical burnout is when, this chronic stress that is existing in your life is leading to physical ailments. So you could be fatigued and tired. You may have things like headaches or stomach pain. So it's super important to avoid burnout. If for anything else, your physical health literally can take a huge toll, especially in today's age now. Chronic stress also decreases your immune system. So making sure that we're doing our part to try and avoid burnout with some of the techniques I'm going to talk about going forward. Mental burnout. So this can be things like if you're at a TBS function and, if you're mentally burnt out, you may not be able to have that ability to concentrate like you once used to, or you're having, I said on here, altered perception. So what that is like things that maybe you used to find enjoyable, or you used to, have a certain opinion of, that perception has changed as a result of some stress that you've experienced in TBS, and now this altered perception is occurring. The final bullet point is emotional burnout. So that's when Katie Brink talked a lot about this in her presentation at West Block, so shout out to her, is when like activities don't spark any joy anymore that they used to. And I hope for all of us in TBS, we do find joy in the activities that we do, but that lack of joy or the feeling of emptiness, like I have on there, is very indicative that you are emotionally burnt out. So which one are you going to have if you happen to become a burnt out person? Well, like I said, everybody is different, and there are so many different things that can determine this. Like personality types are super big now, like your Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram and all of that stuff. And all of those, also, if you want to comment what you are for those, like that's cool. I'm an ENFJ and I'm a type 3 for the Enneagram. So if any of you can relate, hello. But those things like personality tests, like those can give you insight as to like what your personality gets burnt out on. So like for me, what burns me out a lot is not getting like that social interaction with people. So now is a really fun time for me, honestly, with social isolation going on. But not getting that social interaction really burns me out. But also, I'm very prone to help others and try to help others. And that can also be something that contributes to me getting burnout. So being cognizant of that in my mind has helped me sort of combat those feelings that I've experienced in the past. So really, we're going to go into this and we're going to do a fun self-reflection exercise next. So just keeping in mind that like looking into yourself and knowing your values is going to help determine what it is that makes you feel stressed, because really all of us are going to feel differently about it. Something that makes me very happy might make someone else extremely stressful. Like I love talking to groups of people and I like talking in front of crowds, but to other people, that's like the worst thing in the world. So just be cognizant and considering others' needs because they are not the same as yours. So doing my little next slide pose. So we're going to do a burnout activity. So if you have like a piece of paper or a phone or something, unless you're using your phone to watch this, then like rip. We're going to go through these questions that are on the next slide. So what you're going to do is well, they're not questions, they're statements, sorry. What you're going to do is I will read one of the statements and you will rate it on a scale of 1 to 5. And the purpose of this is to try to judge your risk for burnout. So 1 is you never really identify with the statement that I read. 2 is you rarely identify with it. 3 is you sometimes identify with it. 4 is you often identify with it. And 5 is always/very, or always/you very often identify with it. So I can give people some time. If like one person in the chat wants to let me know if you have like a writing utensil ready to do this, because I know the chat is a little lagged behind my speaking. So I'll wait for someone to let me know that they have like stuff to write down their tallies, and then I'll move forward. But while I'm waiting for that response, just important to keep in mind, this is just a survey that I created. I took a lot of the questions from questions we ask people in the workplace and sort of applied them to TBS situations and tried to get the same outcome of information. So I will wait for someone to tell me. Okay, great. Emily is ready. I'm going to take that as y'all are ready too. I hope you're prepared. So if you go to the next slide, the self-reflection questions. So I'll read them. Like I said, you guys have the slides up. So if you need to go back to that other slide to review what the ratings were, please do. But we will be tallying all of these up and totaling them at the end. So after TBS, I feel emotionally or physically drained. I feel like I have no one to talk to / don't belong in like your chapter. I feel underappreciated in my chapter. TBS makes me feel like I have no time for other things. The actions of my sisters tend to irritate me. I feel like my opinion is not heard in my chapter. I feel like communication in my chapter is unclear. I feel like I am not given the chance to be a leader. I feel like the pace of change within my chapter overwhelms me. And I feel like my chapter does not make sisterhood a priority. Oh, I'm sorry, Devin. I'm sorry. This would be a lot easier if I had the slides. I'm sorry. I'll give it a minute. Luckily, you guys have all of them up, so I'll let you guys catch up with those for a second. Also, my legs are falling asleep, so I'm going to sit on this stool now. Then, does anyone need me to read them again, or just having the slides, is it fine? Can you look at them yourself and I just wait for people to catch up? Just let me know. Oh, they're on the slides. OMG, just noticed. Oh, yeah, sorry, they're on the slides. So if you need to look at the questions, you can do that. Otherwise, I can repeat them again. Just let me know. Slides are good. Okay, great. Thank you, Kate. Okay. So I will wait for someone to let me know that they have gone through and rated all the things, and then I'll start talking about the score. Once you have rated them all, just add them all up to a grand total, and we'll reflect on those. Sorry, I'm having to adapt to a different presentation style, but we're rolling with it, and I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to see some awkward dance moves for a minute. So yeah, we'll wait it out. Is everybody good? Still working? What does that say? Pull up Jeopardy in another tab? I'm not sure. Don't forget to say your name and chat. Oh, that's not for me. Okay, I need to stop. I look like that meme where I'm squinting and bending over. But has anybody gotten through them yet? Good. Okay, great. So if you're still tallying, don't worry. I just want to make sure that we're able to get through all of this stuff since I had to kind of fumble around with everything at first, and I don't want to waste too much of your guys' time. So what does your score mean? So basically, I just listed 3 values, but obviously you can fall anywhere in between these. So a 10 is you rated every single question a 1. So you're going to be a relatively low risk for burnout. And then anywhere from 10 to 30, you're kind of in that low to moderate range. You may be experiencing some signs of burnout, and you're definitely experiencing stress in some chapter functions, but it's not to the point where you've really reached that debilitating lack of joy, lack of feeling of emptiness, and all of that good stuff. Not good stuff, sorry. And then anywhere from 30 to 50 is your moderate to severe. So that's the high risk or likely already in some sort of state of burnout. So again, if we reflected on if you've had experience with burnout in the past and things like that. So kind of going into this, you may have known if you were kind of experiencing these things or not. But if anybody wants to share the score they got in the thing in the little comments, you're welcome to. Obviously, I know that's personal information, so don't feel like you have to. But what I want you to take away from it is that these are not like definitive answers. Like you could have gotten like a 36, which is like moderate to severe, but really you could be fine. Because again, what I talked about before was that, you know, people experience burnout completely differently and everyone has a different tolerance to stress. So just because there are a lot of stressors in your life doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be experiencing this, you know, big drain and collapse because of all this stress you're having. So this score just gives you a rough look at, okay, where am I at as far as risk factors go? Should I take some precautions or should I try to make some changes in my life to maybe alleviate some of these stressors? And at the end of the day, even if you don't feel burnt out or you're not feeling those stressors, but you still answered maybe a 3, 4, or 5 on something, it's still an issue that you can take back to your chapter and maybe try to work on and improve. So I did put down at the bottom here that keeping in mind the 7th essential factor, the tolerance tempered with kindness and a consideration for the needs of others, it's what I've already been saying a lot of the time, and what I just went over is that what your score means may be like super severe for someone else, but it's actually pretty mild for you. So just always having the consideration of others' needs in your mind as we're going through these. Okay, so if everyone is cool, or if you have questions about your score and you want to talk about it later, feel free to message me, but we'll move on to the next slide. So why is self-reflection important? So why do we do this? Well, first of all, it's going to be your first line prevention for experiencing burnout and the stress that accompanies with it. So like I said before, try to implement something like this within your chapters if possible. Any chapter leaders on here, this is definitely something that you can do just to quickly gauge sort of how your chapter members are feeling stress-wise. You can adapt it too to make it more suitable for your chapter's environment. Also, prevention of burnout is much easier to do than actually combating it once you are in that sort of state of stress. So taking these measures beforehand are going to save you so much time in the long run, and save you a lot of effort, because if a lot of your chapter members start to, you know, get higher scores, then your production and efficiency is going to take a big hit. And rather than, you know, taking that hit and like business coming to a halt, you can do things to prevent your members from getting this way, like just small things in chapter, and we'll go through them later in this presentation. But it's going to save you in the long run, and it's going to be easier for you as a chapter to recover from. So just keeping in mind that maybe taking an extra 5 minutes in chapter to do something to sort of help mental health and help stress relief of chapter members would be something to try. So it also just, like I said, it provides feedback for your chapter function. So it allows your chapter leaders to know kind of what's going on, engage what's happening. It allows a chance for growth and leadership development. I mean, if you know that things are wrong, it gives you the chance to grow and fix them. And, you know, if chapter leaders want to sort of take a back burner approach to this and let just general non-positional members of the chapter sort of take the lead in trying to alleviate stress in the chapter, I think that's a very effective approach. And it also, I think sometimes it helps to not have someone in a leadership position talking and sort of leading that charge, because it feels more of like a chapter effort than when your representative sort of making this change is not a member of your executive board. So just kind of something to keep in mind there. And then, does your chapter reflect like this at all already? I just kind of wanted to know if there was anything in the discussion that you guys wanted to talk about. I know, like ZA, we've done CMEPs in the past where we ask for chapter feedback and learn how we embody things like our purposes and our values of Tau Beta Sigma, so we can gauge where the chapter's at. And things like that. So if any of you want to share a cool reflection idea that your chapters do, and sort of have the comments be a place for like resources for other chapters to use. If there's something that you find is really effective, please feel free to share that with other people to utilize who are listening as well. If not, though, we will move to the other slide. I know it's hard because I can't see what slides you guys are on. So if I'm ever going too fast, please just like send a message to slow down. Also, yes, silent affirmations, and actually hold that thought because I'm going to talk about those later in this presentation. But if I'm ever going too fast and like I think the comments are a little bit behind what I'm saying, so just like please let me know so I can make sure you guys are getting a good experience out of this. But for the slide we should be on right now, it's the how does burnout happen in your chapter. So that's the slide we should be on. It's the big purple one, just so everyone is all nice and caught up. So if anybody wants to put in the message a way that you think burnout occurs in your chapter right now, or just have them in your head as we go through some of the main ones I'm going to talk about. And then at the end, we can kind of see if any of the ones you were thinking of were ones that I talked about. So we'll go to the first slide. And the first thing that I think a lot of chapters experience burnout with is a TBS life imbalance. So what I mean by that is, yes, ISMDC for sure. What I mean by that is a TBS life imbalance. So TBS is taking a higher priority than it should over the other priorities in your life. So we've all heard the phrase, at least I know ZA has, that TBS is not your major. And that's something super important to remember. Your schoolwork comes first. You know, I can't speak to what your values are, but things like my family and friends, those come before Tau Beta Sigma as well. Like the activity that we did at West Block with filling your jar with your stones, your pebble, and your sand, something very relevant to this. And that's going into my next point is making sure you reflect on your priorities is going to be huge because you want to know where TBS sort of lies in your list of priorities to avoid this work or this TBS life imbalance. It is totally fine if you have TBS like way up high on the top of your list. But just being cognizant of where it sits is super important so you don't get that sort of internal struggle when your priorities are not matching up. So something that I do that I find very effective is just making a list of your priorities. So you just have some sort of physical reminder like, hey, this is what's important to me. It can be a list. It can be something like super creative. I don't know. I couldn't make like a fun picture like that. It would look really bad. So just a simple list is fine. Because when you start to put TBS over things that you find should have a higher priority, you get this internal conflict within yourself. And that's what starts to generate that stress that, if not resolved, will eventually lead us down to that burnout. So prioritization is one way. Another time that TBS life imbalance can occur is just with, getting organized. Sometimes it's that simple. Life is crazy, college is crazy. Sometimes we just need to utilize a planner, a calendar, whatever it is, color code your life. That's totally fine. But sometimes that imbalance comes because you're racing to spend so much time on TBS this week, but then you're like, oh shoot, now I need to get caught up on all this homework this week. So just making sure that you set aside time, which transitions to my next bullet point. You set aside time well for Tau Beta Sigma. One way that I suggest is just blocking out time each week and just sort of setting a time limit for things you're going to do for TBS. It's really important to try to not go over this time limit, because then you're going to be back to the battle of, okay, now I don't have that TBS life imbalance. It's really off, and I want to try to find that equilibrium. So making sure that you just block out a certain amount of time each week that you can try to say, this is my time for TBS. I don't want to go over it. Obviously, there are times when you are going to go over it. We have busy seasons. I know for my chapter, October and April are super busy months for us. But, again, this goes back to planning and getting organized. You know this, and then you'll adjust and adapt as we go. So that's TBS life imbalance. Another way, if we're going to move to the next slide, is poor communication. So poor communication is super big. And I know a lot of chapters struggle with this sometimes. And communication is hard. I mean, we want to have nice, effective communication, but there are times when things just, get missed, and that happens. We're human. We're not perfect. But things that can occur because of poor communication in your chapter are things that you should be communicating that cause stress. Sorry, my bad. So if you aren't communicating these, they will cause stress and lead to feelings of burnout. Chapter deadlines. So if your chapter is not being told chapter deadlines in a timely manner, you're placing so much extra stress on your chapter members when it's the week before or a couple days before, and you're like, oh, by the way, we all need to do this. And then there's just that extra stress that might start a cycle for someone to kind of just go down a bad road. So making sure you're setting clear deadlines well ahead of time to help alleviate the stress that you're placing on your chapter members. Active requirements. So reflecting on your active requirements and making sure that they fit your chapter's needs. I mean, so an example, Zeta Alpha, we had a really big rush class last year, and our chapter size basically doubled. So that was a much different chapter environment than we previously had. So we had to look at our active requirements and make some changes to them so our sisters didn't feel stressed out. One of the changes we made was to how we did service hours to accommodate for this many people now needing to get the same amount of hours as before when we had half the chapter size. So making sure that your active requirements are able to evolve with your chapter's changing needs is going to be super big in communication, and communicating those changes to your chapter too. Another thing, I mean, we've already gone through changes, so we'll just leave that bullet point, but then also feedback. If you're not communicating to the people in charge what you want to change, then, I mean, sometimes they may not know that things need to change, but then also chapter leadership needs to be communicating back that they have heard your feedback and they're working on it. Just so everyone is clear, and there's a clear line of communication that at least things are in the process and things are working to improve. Because if not, you're just going to sit in that weird stress state where you don't know what's happening. And I've already said this multiple times, but poor communication just leads to the higher levels of stress. And chronic stress is the biggest reason why burnout occurs. So avoiding situations that cause you that prolonged chronic stress are going to be the most effective way to prevent burnout. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. So we're going to move on to the next slide then. Another big point that I think chapters experience that lead them to have members burnt out is workload extremes. So this can either be one of two things. The super common one that I think comes to people's minds a lot is overworked. So there's so much to do. And I think, this kind of goes into those remembering your active requirements and constantly changing things. Reflecting on those so that your chapter can keep up, because again, TBS isn't our major, and if they physically don't have the time to maintain that TBS life balance, then we're not really doing our job as leaders in the chapter to help alleviate that stress. Another thing that I think people don't often think about is underworked or not having enough to do. So, our purposes say that TBS should be a meaningful experience. It should be worthwhile. So making sure that we are having activities in place and we're doing service events, we're doing programs, we're doing things that are going to make this experience worth it. Because if we're not, and we're just kind of sitting there in a weird state of, oh, our chapter's not really doing anything, then people are going to get stressed. They're going to feel isolated. They're going to feel like kind of it's a waste of time. So that's going to hurt your retention, and it's going to lead to stress, and people might not want to come to TBS anymore, and being at TBS might cause them stress because they know there's not really anything in it for them. So making sure that you're finding a nice balance with your workload and your active requirements within your chapter. The next point that I think chapters struggle with is a lack of sisterhood. So sisterhood is definitely at the heart of a lot of things that we do. Oh, sorry, next slide if you didn't catch that. And quite simply, sisters just feel unsupported. And there's a lot of stress that can go in that. If you are in chapter and you're in a room with people that you don't really feel like you can have support with and you don't think you can have an open conversation with, you're going to get those feelings of stress and anxiety being in chapter settings. And we don't want that because that's going to set someone down that path. And I quoted one of the reflection questions that I had, that I feel like I do not have anyone to talk to or I don't belong. And that's just an example of sort of someone feeling like they have a lack of sisterhood in their chapter. So chapter meetings need to focus on business, but they also need to be fun. And I know that this is a constant struggle that people leave feedback about, that, meetings are too fun or meetings are too businessy. And it's really hard to find that balance. I don't know if any of you can relate, but that does happen, and members often get kind of picky about that balance. So just making sure always that you're doing things for the majority in your chapter. And this goes back to getting that feedback from your chapter members and just listening to them and, actively listening to your chapter membership, because they're going to be the ones that direct the change that you're going to implement. So having fun is okay. Like I said, please have fun in your chapter meetings. Participation of members is also a big thing. This goes into the next bullet point that we're going to talk about, but making sure that your members have ways to participate that are fun and engaging for them. So the next slide then is going to be the final one for ways that I think burnout occurs in chapters, and that is a lack of input or control. So your chapter, it should have some sort of feedback system, whether that's something technology-based or in-person-based. There just needs to be some line of communication that members know is available to them to communicate things that are causing them stress, or, leading to these feelings of burnout and all of that good stuff. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. There was movement in the gallery. So another big thing that I think happens is who speaks at your chapter meetings. I think this can also lead to a lot of people feeling stressed or just not wanting to come to chapter, and then TBS sort of becomes this negative presence with them because they feel like they don't really have a place in our business. So making sure that you have means set up within your chapter to ask for chapter involvement. I know this year our president, Devin, he started this like Tau Beta Sigma show and tell that we do at the beginning of each chapter meeting. And it's been super effective because it's a nice way to get new voices heard in chapter, and it kind of starts the chapter meeting off on a nice like upbeat note. So we pick a new member each week to sort of just talk about something in their life that doesn't relate to TBS or band, and they just get to talk about it and be passionate about it. And that really helps develop leadership in those members. And also, like I said, it has a new voice in chapter, and it keeps your chapter meetings interesting for your members so they don't go down this stressful road of dreading Tau Beta Sigma meetings and things like that. And then also, who takes the lead on your chapter projects? This one is really kind of like just changing the atmosphere within your chapter. So if a new project gets brought up, are your non-positional members of your chapter going to feel comfortable maybe volunteering to take the lead on that? Or is it kind of just assumed that your president or your committee heads or someone on exec is just going to take the lead on a chapter project? So figuring out, and again, reflecting. Self-reflection is like a super big thing for all of this burnout prevention stuff. Reflecting on what your chapter is doing and figuring out if you have a comfortable chapter environment where people feel like, yes, I want to step up and I want to take the lead on this project, is going to give them purpose, and it's going to reduce those feelings of stress because they're at chapter and they have this thing that they're going to talk about now, and like this is their piece of TBS that they get to be a part of. So then going on to the next slide. So that kind of covers what I was talking about just some main points about stressors in chapters that eventually lead to burnout. So I want to finish the presentation with our district's theme of grow, empower, and evolve, but in the realm of burnout with members. So how we can overcome, we've talked about the risks at the beginning. We talked about ways that it can occur in our chapter in the middle of this presentation, and now I want to finish with ways that we can use this idea of grow, empower, evolve to overcome those feelings and, you know, come out the other side of this as stronger sisters together. So we're going to go to the next slide, which is growth. So growth has a really unique relationship with burnout, in my opinion. So too much growth or too little growth, as we talked about before, sort of with the rapid changes and things like that, is that if you grow way too fast in your chapter or you're not doing enough, that growth can lead to stress on your members if it's at either ends of the extreme. And it's all about balance. And we already talked about balance a lot, so I don't want to go over that again. But growth should occur after burnout, and that's the key takeaway there. So if you have a member who feels burnt out, you should not make it feel like it's a failure, because it's not. And really, any of us can experience this in mild to severe cases. We all just need a break from the things that we love, and that happens. But we should make sure that our members feel supported enough that if this does happen, they shouldn't feel like a failure, and they should feel like this is an opportunity to grow for them. And I put on there to not rush growth. And that's so big, because if you try to rush growth and you try to get back to being 100% after you have these super, like if after you get through this chronic stress and you don't want to be in TBS anymore or things like that, if you try to rush getting back to normal, you're just setting yourself up to go down that same road again. So I mean, I came up with the comparison of like, why would you expect anything to change if you try to go at it the same way a second time? So making sure that we take our time with growth so then we can maintain low stress levels and things like that after we have overcome our challenges. And then obviously just if you know what the specific thing is that led to your like feeling burnt out and stressed, try to correct that problem. But we are complex people, and stress is very multifactorial in nature. And just because we're being stressed from TBS doesn't mean we're not receiving stressors in our everyday life too. So if it's possible, try to correct the problem within your chapters if it is a TBS issue. If it is multiple facets of your life, which let's be real, we're all stressed about everything. Life is stressful, but just making sure you don't try to tackle all of those at once. You know, tackle little things and little stressors to help you get through this and promote growth within yourself. So the next bullet point then is empower. So once our sisters have, you know, started this growth process, we want to empower them, and we want them to, you know, we want to encourage them to get through that process of growing. So we need to be there for them, because this is hard to go through. And I know when I was feeling very burnt out with TBS, I would not have gotten through that if I didn't have the support of my sisters who made me want to be a better member again. So like, shout out to all of you, first of all, for doing that, because like really, like I could not have done that alone. So making sure that you're just there as a support system to help people who feel this way. Again, making sure you aren't letting them feel like they're a failure, and then this happens to all of us, just being there for each other. Some things I said that can help make sisters feel empowered: checking in on your sisters, allowing them to be more active in the chapter. We went over this. This is kind of like the reflective part of the presentation, so sorry, there's some repeat info. Do fun sisterhood activities. So that was the part that I was saving for now that Emily, you had commented before. So if anybody wants to share like super fun sisterhood activities that your chapter does, please feel free to do that. One of the ones that we do that Emily had mentioned in the chat earlier was silent affirmations. And that is where like our sisterhood chair or our president, someone, like they're in the middle of a circle and everyone sits with their backs facing out and they close their eyes. And then you select like a couple of people to come into the middle of the circle. And then whoever's in charge reads statements like, I think TBS is a much better place because of you. And then like you go tap the shoulder of the person that applies to. So doing activities like these can just sort of, oh, and snaps too. Yes, how could I forget snaps? Snaps are anonymous compliments that we do at the end of our chapter meetings, and then we all snap for the person that got it. But doing activities like these, like a core sisterhood activity that's really important to your chapter, can be something that sort of just gives you a nice reset and sets you back on that path to success. So again, being very self-aware of your chapter's environment and knowing when, hey, maybe we need to do silent affirmations or a big sisterhood activity or something. Just sort of reset that stress and get you moving right back down that path to success for your chapter. Like I said, please feel free to share if you have anything that you want to add. If not, we'll move on to the next and last slide, which is evolving after burnout. So I kind of see growth, I kind of see it as like a math equation. So if any of you are like math people, I'm not, so I'm even surprised my mind went to this. But like I see it as like growth plus empowerment leads to evolving. So kind of looking at it as that way, sort of as like a math equation, kind of leads us to this last slide and this last step. So first of all, I want to talk about that 2 big points in evolving are resilience and maintenance. So you've grown and your sisters have helped you and you've felt empowered, and now you're finally at this new state where you've overcome your burnout and you have new tools and coping mechanisms to help you better avoid burnout in the future. So you need to kind of keep those in mind and remember like the warning signs and the stressors that we talked about in the beginning of this presentation so that you're more resilient and you can see them coming and combat them. And like I said way back at the beginning, that being preventative about stress and burnout is going to be the best way to fight it. And then with maintenance, just keeping those things at the front of your mind that you have learned so that you can constantly be growing and changing and things like that. Sorry, I'm trying to like make sure we stay under an hour, so it's fine. Anyways, when things are, maybe things don't go as well and you try to grow and you try to empower and it just wasn't working. Sometimes to evolve, you just need to start fresh. There's often a lot of old feelings and things attached to events or previous arguments over events and things like that. So sometimes a fresh start is really the best way to reach that sort of end evolving stage. So the last thing that I have on there is the goal of evolving is to prevent. And that's kind of what I've been talking about this whole time, is that all of these measures you want to take, you want to be using them as tools to prevent you from getting to that burnout state that you maybe were previously in. So just keeping in mind, like I said before, think of it as like your growth plus your empowering leads to your evolving. And then like, hopefully you want to stay in like that equal sign evolving part. So that when you are working and, you're going to be, I don't know how much longer you have in TBS and things like that, but even just in your life, using the skills that you have taken from your previous stressors and things like that, and applying them to the future so that you can avoid feelings of burnout. Oh gosh, things are popping up on my computer. Sorry. So that you can avoid those feelings of burnout in the future. Okay, so I'm sorry that this was like super crazy at the beginning and the slides weren't up. It kind of threw me off. But I want to thank everyone for coming, and I would be happy to answer any questions. I know this was kind of a weird presentation with the setup, and I'm super sorry about that. It's not what I had planned, but I'm happy to answer any questions, or if anybody just kind of wants to talk about some burnout stuff, I am here to listen. I'll keep an eye on the chat. I don't know how far behind it is though, so we'll see what it says. Because I also know we're getting close to an hour, so I don't want to take up too many people's time. Anyone? Thank you. Aw. Thank you. Thanks, Emily. Yeah, I'm super happy we got to do this. I think a big thing with burnout, as like sort of like a closing statement, I guess, is that it's something that we don't really talk about a lot, and some people just don't really feel comfortable talking about it at all. So I think hopefully what I hope you got out of this at least is having someone just talk about it and being honest with the fact that it can happen, I hope is at least relatable to you, and that you're able to maybe open up about those feelings to your chapter or just to people that are close to you so that we can all kind of work through this together. So I hope that this was at least helpful in the fact that this is a topic that doesn't really get talked about a lot, and it may be alleviated some stress for you. Any other questions, comments? Again, sorry the presentation was weird. I tried my best to stick on groove. Anything? Maybe. Okay, well, if y'all don't have anything, I'll keep an eye on the chat for a little bit longer. But if not, I want to thank you all for coming. I hope you have a wonderful day, week. I know that, oh, wait, here we go. It's a perfect timing for what's happening right now. When you notice someone else experiencing burnout, how do you help them? Oh, that's a great question. First of all, Patrick, yes, I think it is super relevant for everything that's going on right now. So when someone else is experiencing burnout, it's hard to confront because, like I said, it's so individualized to people that you don't really know exactly what was the reason that they are feeling burnt out in the first place. If you do, then obviously maybe work to correct that to make it a better environment for them. But if you're very close with the person, maybe having an honest conversation with them, like, hey, I've kind of noticed you haven't been yourself lately. Like, is everything okay? I know in nursing and like at a lot of jobs, we have like recognizing burnout training. And a lot of the things are like recognizing if your coworkers aren't really feeling happy in their job anymore, or they're like, like they just have like a different personality, a different outlook towards things. So recognizing those changes in the people that you're close to, I think is just the first step. And then reaching out, and the thing that I said about empowering them, reaching out and being a sister who's there for them and asking them if they need any help, I think just goes a long way for a lot of people. But at the end of the day, you have to be the one that sort of takes control of that, because no one can make you stop feeling like stress if it's internal and things like that. So I think reaching out and at least making that first step and recognizing there's some sort of change in their personality is a good first start. Any other questions that people want to ask me? I don't know why I kind of sounded British when I said want. That was weird. Anything else? Because we're almost at an hour, so I don't want to go over. And I know the chat's behind, so I'll just hang out for a second. No? Going once? Twice? Okay, so yeah, thanks so much for coming. I hope it was helpful. If you have any other questions, please reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to talk to any of you guys. I hope this was helpful to you. Have a wonderful night. Please try to avoid stress with everything that is going on right now. Sweet. MLITB, as always, to all of you. Thanks so much for the support. All right. And I'll keep an eye on the chat too. And if I missed any questions, I'll reach out and let you guys know. Thanks so much.